1,000%. But I think everybody's going to ask this question from a coaching perspective. Would you expend what Gonzaga had to expend against UCLA? And it's hard to even frame this without making it sound like you're making an excuse, and I'm not. What's the impact of something like that and then coming back and having to play a team that is every bit as good and certainly maybe better, quite a bit better than you are?
They play back-to-back physical games. So let's face it, the UCLA game, they played 5 extra minutes. It was a physical basketball game. And this game, obviously, Baylor took it to them. Baylor absolutely whacked Houston. Probably had a chance to a little bit more in the tank. But I don't want to take that away from Baylor. Like, that might be a reason, but I don't want to take that away from Baylor. I think the interesting thing about Baylor, think about how Baylor was built. We talked about this yesterday. Think about their backcourt. Jared Butler, under-recruited. Davion Mitchell, transfers from Auburn. Adam Flagler from Presbyterian. All right, Maceo Teague from UNC Asheville. I mean, Scott Drew does an incredible job of evaluating whether they're coming out of high school or transfers and developing players, because those guys have all gotten better, and he figures out guys that can play for him because they are extremely unselfish, fiercely competitive. And, I mean, right now, he's got this thing rolling. Like you just said, they've got it rolling.
You know, and Butler, too, not only under-recruited, he started his career sort of. He never played there. He was at Alabama on campus. And it was a medical.
Just got a text message from Avery Johnson saying, Scott Drew should thank me.
Yeah. No question.
You know, true, it's right here.
But to your point about being spent after the UCLA game, I know we're not making excuses for anybody. But being tired, being emotionally drained, being spent, that's only what gets said after you lose. Nobody ever said, hey, the winning team was really tired and spent.
It doesn't mean it's not real. It happens. It's part of it.
I don't think it does. Not in a championship game.
No, back-to-back games.
I think it's a fact.
Teams play back-to-back games all the time.
Maybe so, but there is something to the emotional energy. And maybe the same thing happens. It probably does. There was no reason to look at that game and think that Baylor would have lost it. I think it's fair to bring it up, for sure.
Yeah, well, you brought it up.
I did. And this time I'm right. So, you know.
and it's interesting because
I love that.
I thought Baylor looked tired. Iron sharpened iron. They didn't get it sharpened.
And I said earlier that these two programs, since I've been here, is everyone had always asked the question, saying that Baylor would always put a good product out there and be competitive. Gonzaga would always put a good product out there and be competitive because they win the big one. How about this validation here for Baylor and this program that Scott Drew's been able to put together? And the style, 2.5 years ago, they were a zone team.
1-1-3.
Yes, and now going primarily man-to-man. I mean, we talk about coaching and being able to adjust to the players that you have. What a remarkable job Scott Drew has done with the Baylor program.
So the narrative about Scott Drew.
Mitchell.
Yes.
You go man.
Right.
You go man with that guy.
Good move. Dudes with their hair on fire out there. What a great.
Easy with the hair on fire, Jeff.
That's apparently what happened to you three guys. Dick Vitale joins us now. Speaking of people with hair on fire, Dickie, how do you describe what you saw? Just a virtuoso performance from the Bears tonight.
Well, that was just tremendous right out of the gate. Their defense was superb. And I agree. I heard Jay talking about the fact. I don't want to hear this cry about they were exhausted in the UCLA game. Jay, I think you might have been on the bench. I'm not sure. But I think you were coaching at Duke. I think you were coaching at Duke at time 92. When they beat that UNLV team, they gave everything humanly possible. Early, it's a big three. They're emotionally drained. Coach K makes them enjoy the moment that night. And then the next day said, hey, we're here to win a national title, not just to get to the final game. And I'll guarantee that was the message what was utilized by Mark Few. Bottom line was, I'm not convinced after watching tonight and doing the game against so when they beat the heck out of Houston, that this club was not just more athletic and a better team than Gonzaga. Remember this, they were 17-0 playing brilliant until COVID came in. And when COVID came in, they went a little bit of a slump. They lost 2 games. They found their way in this tournament, and they were brilliant in that first half against a good defensive Houston team. Let's just give a tribute and not make excuses. Give an unbelievable tribute to this team, Baylor, for the brilliant performance. They were sensational in this tournament.
Dick, did you ever think, as you were watching the game tonight, I mean, once they got up 15 in our conference room, threw the proverbial fork. I didn't have a fork through a spoon. So this game's over. Did you, even when they got it to 10 at halftime, did you think Gonzaga really had it in them to come back on this team with the way Baylor was playing?
No, I didn't feel at all. Even though when they got to cut it to 9, they cut it to 9 and immediately went to 16. They got it up 16 in about a minute and a half. They were in control of this game. You know what makes them so special? They defend really well, and they're very athletic, and many times those kind of teams do not shoot well. Well, you combine that defensive tenacity with the ability to have 4 guys that can make threes, whether it be a Flagler, a Teague, a Mitchell, or Butler. It doesn't matter. Meyer, the bench play was much more superb than you look at Gonzaga. You know, Chamwa Chachua off the bench. You think, boy, I worked on that name, man. I worked on that name. I can tell you that. And him coming off the bench, Meyer off the bench, Flagler off the bench. Those 3 guys could start at many schools across the nation. This is a legitimate national championship team. They earned it. They won it on the floor, and they won it in style and in a convincing way. But I also want to give a tribute to Mark Few. They don't come much nicer than Mark and also Scott. 2 quality guys, do things the right way for a tremendous season. Prove it again how difficult it is to go unblemished.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.